Opinions expressed in this episode are personal. They do not necessarily reflect the views of this streaming platform.
Good day, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Let's Be Diverse. I am your host, Andrew Stoute. This episode is dedicated to all my loved ones who supported me through this journey. One of the conversations I've been having a lot lately is transition and people transitioning from one career to the next. So I thought I'd kind of delve into this because it was really interesting to me. Specifically, teachers and HR has been something that's really been intriguing me as far as so many people transitioning from those careers to another. So today we're talking about leading through multiple job transitions. And my guest today is Kaitlyn Rios. Welcome to the show, Kaitlyn. I am so happy to have you on today.
So glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
You're very, very welcome. I know we've kind of been talking about it for a while, so it's pretty cool to have you on here today. How are things with you? What's going on in your world? Give us the deets. What's going on in Kaitlyn's world?
Well, I am currently busy with a new role that I started back in January. So work is keeping me busy. I've got two kiddos, a 6-year-old and a 2-year-old. So they obviously keep me running. And just trying to have a little fun this summer. We just got back from Hot Springs last weekend. I just started back like a 16-year stint of not doing this, but I just started back with some ceramics pottery work. So I'm having a lot of fun with that. So it's good times.
And I imagine the ceramics is very calming for you, very relaxing. It's just like your time. I know my wife is very much into carpentry, so she likes to build stuff, and she finds it, for me, it's a lot of work. I would not, it's just not for me, but for her, she says it's very relaxing for her, very mind numbing, and it kind of, takes her away from a lot of stuff. And so it's something that she enjoys. So I imagine it's the same for the ceramics.
Absolutely. It's very calming.
Very calming, and it's pretty cool when you actually finish the final product and see what you made. Must be pretty cool as well.
You got something to use after you're finished. That's pretty neat.
Well, I'm glad that everything is going well on your end, and glad you're able to get away and have some family time. It's super important. I think we're all busy, and we do need to have those downtimes. I did take a 2-week span we didn't go anywhere. We just did a stake vacation, but I didn't do anything. The weather wasn't the greatest during that 2 weeks, but I was okay with, watching 2-3 movies in a day and just chilling out and eating when I wanted to, and, waking up the next day and doing what we felt like doing. So it was really, really relaxing. And I think we all need that for sure.
Absolutely. Good recharge.
It sure is. So before we begin, Kaitlyn, I always have a fun, thought-provoking questions for my guests to get things going. Okay. Are you ready for yours today?
I'm ready.
Ready. Okay. So your question today is, why are there flotation devices under plane seats instead of parachutes?
That's a great question. Man, I guess they're not planning for anything bad happening in midair. These days they probably should, though.
Yeah.
Man, yeah, that's a really very good question. Yeah. I guess they're very, very optimistic.
Very optimistic, yeah.
Midair.
So optimistic that nothing terrible will happen midair. No, that's very very astute, very very good thought. I thought of it too when I wrote it. I'm like, I wonder why they don't have that. It's great for when the plane crashes and you have something to float if it's over the ocean, but
I guess it makes you wonder, do most plane accidents happen over water? If you fell out of a plane over the water, you could use the flotation device if you landed in the water.
Right, exactly. But if you're landing in like a field, well, then the flotation device is not going to help you very, very much.
Probably wouldn't cushion that landing.
No, no, not at all. Well, thanks for having so much fun with me, Kaitlyn. I really appreciate that. It's something that I look forward to every episode. So thank you so much for that. Why don't we start off with you telling us a little bit about you, your story, and your why?
Sure thing. So I'll try not to get too in the details here, but I think it's important to know kind of my background, how I grew up a little bit, and then I'll tell you a little bit about my career and kind of where I'm at today.
Sure.
So as a kid, I moved a ton. I think the last time I counted it was like 13 times. Because of that moving a ton and following my father's career around the world, made me a very adaptable person. I had to pick up and replant myself every 2-ish years, most of my childhood. And so, forced myself to be around new people, be around new types of people, be in new social settings and situations, new schools, you name it. And so I feel like I owe my adaptability to that and my ability to just kind of be able to accommodate really any setting I'm put in and thrive. And I think that's part of why I thrive in change. So fast forward a bit to my career. I always knew I wanted to do something in medicine. Never really knew exactly what, but I spent a lot of time in undergrad shadowing in the radiology department at a cancer facility and realized very quickly that was not what I wanted to do. I wanted to be around people and not in a dark room. And so my mom had a random foot surgery she had to get done, and she had to go to physical therapy. And her first visit, her only visit, she was a terrible patient. She told me, she was like, I think you would do really well in this. You get to be around people. It's a really fun atmosphere. Check it out. So that following Christmas break, I came home and I shadowed at that same physical therapy clinic that she had her one and only visit at. And it was like I had arrived. Like that was my place. I felt at home. I felt like, I could definitely see myself having a career in this. It was just kind of electric. Like the atmosphere was really inviting and you got to really get to know your patients. And I really appreciated that. And so that sort of began my journey into physical therapy. And so went to PT school, got my doctorate in physical therapy. As soon as I came out of school, I was working in a skilled nursing facility and didn't love that. Got out of it pretty much as quick as I could. And I joined a hospital where the physical therapists were the ones leading the wound care team, which is very niche, very unique, very unusual, to be honest. And it gave me a very unique opportunity to get insight to a very niche part of this career that I didn't know that I could even explore. Didn't know that there would be opportunities for. And so I fell in love with it. I did as much shadowing and learning on the job as I could. And about 6 months into that role, I began my first leadership position as a supervisor of a budding wound care clinic. And that was kind of really a pivotal moment in my career that really launched me into this world of wound care and leadership and just the love of operations that I have now. And fast forward, I've been, in several different roles with wound care. I have started clinics from the ground up. I've expanded clinics across state lines. I have built national wound care programs. And now I'm working in the sales side of wound care where we're actually manufacturing and selling wound care products. So, I joke and say I sell Band-Aids for a living, but really I do. I mean, it's a lot of fun and it's different and it's very eye-opening and just gives you kind of a whole new perspective for healthcare because I get to see the other side of it. So it's sort of my journey. And I guess my why is I want to leave a lasting impact on this world. I want to make it better than how it was when I came into it and leave it better than how it was and hopefully leave a legacy that changes the world for not only patients and people, but, something that makes my family proud, something my kids can look up to me for.
So many things that I want to piggyback on here. So when you're saying that you moved so many times that you were adaptable, for me, you weren't only adapting, you were transitioning into new lifestyles, into new cities, and now it sounds like and then you're talking about your career, you've transitioned into different careers and that. So you were, like I said, not only adaptable, but you were able to transition into those careers. And I'm sure you took a little bit of something from each thing that you did, which has made you where you are today in your career. So I just love that. And you talk about you want to be around people. I feel like, there's certain people that like to be behind a desk or they like to deal with numbers, and God love them for wanting to deal with numbers all day. I'm with you 100%. I am with you 100% on people. I love to be around people. I love to talk to people. I love to hear what people are like to do or what they're doing. And I like to learn about them. And I feel like it's super important to do these things because, you said you want to leave a lasting impression. And I want to do the same as well, leaving a lasting impression by having a good connection with someone and them having, it being memorable for them so that, when we do connect again or when, my name comes up with somebody down the road and, two people are talking and my name comes up, that impression is great, which is
absolutely
what we can all ask for. Let's dive into here. So what are the leadership priorities when it comes to multiple job transitions, and what might get in the way of those priorities?
Such a good question. So, I think it depends on whether you're transitioning between companies or if you're transitioning within a company, right? More often than not, it brings about a very solid opportunity to listen. I have learned that the hard way. And many times in these transitions I've had in my careers, it's so important that when you're coming into a new atmosphere or a new role or a new team, to listen to what the pain points are, right? Listen to how you can jump in and help. Listen to how you can jump in and fix. But don't make fixing the first thing you do either, because that doesn't always rub people the right way. People like to get to know you first. People have to build trust with you first. And I feel like by listening, we can slowly earn that. And so I think it's a delicate dance. But in terms of just prioritizing, it unfortunately, the answer is kind of, it depends, right? It depends on the scenario you're walking into. I've walked into scenarios where I have had to bring together very fragmented teams and build a program that was kind of non-existent or broken. And that took time, but we were able to build something really wonderful relatively quickly. I think because I took that opportunity to listen and hear what needed to be done from the team that existed. In other circumstances, I think of where I've walked into places that just craved leadership, and they needed somebody to kind of take control and kind of listen quickly and get the job done quickly. That is a totally different environment. It's a totally different scenario where your listening piece of things is rapid because it needs to be. And people need somebody to step up and step in and show them how. So really, there's just so many different dynamics that can happen. And you got to prioritize based on the scenario you're stepping into.
So many things I want to pack in there. So first of all, I love the fact that you build trust. I am super passionate about trust and respect. I think it's super important, especially for both leaders and on their teams. The team has to respect the leader and the leader has to respect their team. So it's super important. It goes hand in hand. So I love that you said that. The other thing that I love that you said is that it's a very solid opportunity to listen to what the pain points are. So when you're talking, the two things that scenarios, I mean, again, you said depends. It could be many different scenarios, but two scenarios that came to mind as you were talking was, coming into a situation where there was somebody that was relieved of their duties, or
Mm-hmm.
somebody that was, or somebody that's going into a position that the person, let's say, was retiring. So there's two different scenarios. One is like a happy, joyful,
Mm-hmm.
happy for that leader, especially if they had a lot of trust and respect from their team. So you're going into an environment where, they trusted and respected this leader. Now there's someone else coming in, and now they need to learn how to trust and respect that person.
Right.
Whereas if that person was relieved, then you're walking into could be a
Welcoming situation.
hostile situation where everything was going wrong. And when you said taking the time to listen to the pain points could be different, right? So you can be like a very, hostile pain points, and could be, positive pain points as well. But
Mm-hmm.
I think the listening aspect is important. And I think not taking any, not, when they're talking about, the company, not, it's against me, or not personalizing it against, that it's against yourself. Just, looking at the situation, and not making any promises is probably key too as well, because you don't want to make any promises that you are unable to deliver on, but you want to take mental notes and start to slowly implement those things, so that people want to see stuff. They don't want to hear it and then it not happen. But as things start to see things going, then that makes people feel more comfortable, and then the trust and respect comes in there.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of it has to do with the pace of the organization you're working in, right? I've worked in organizations where they want stuff done very quickly because they need it done very quickly,
Mm-hmm.
or there's a leader that's driving me to work very quickly, right? And other organizations where they're just a little slower on the uptake because of numerous different hurdles or opinions, or, it could be a million things. But I think you've got to really read the room. And that's part of that listening. You got to feel out what that company actually needs from you and what you can feasibly do in that company in order to determine those priorities as a leader.
People have heard me say this so many times. There's two different types of listening. There's listening with to give feedback, and then listening with what I like to call with pause. So you're basically listening, not giving feedback, but you're letting that person speak, because they're just maybe looking to vent, and and they're not looking for I told you so, or or you want to hear my opinion. Like, they're just venting and they just want you to listen. So it's you're trying to figure that out in those situations is probably not going to be a key as well.
Yeah, I think an important question to ask, especially when you're new, and you've got team members looking up to you, or like you said, venting is do you want me to fix this, or do you want to vent? Right? Like, do you want me to just be a listening ear for you? Are you okay? Right? Like, I don't think we get asked that question enough in the workplace. What's the temperature right now? Like, where are you at, and how can I make it better? Or do you even want me to make it better? Can I make it better? Right? There's a lot of questions that come along with the listening.
For sure. So now we know what the priorities are and how they might be difficult. Why do you think that leaders struggle through these times of transition?
Oh man, dynamic, right? Like, the dynamic of a transition is everything. The culture of a transition is everything. I think that if you're new to transition, you're working kind of in an inexperienced way. It's hard to know kind of how to handle the various dynamics. Having transitioned many times throughout a career, I've kind of become skilled at, like I said, reading the room pretty quickly and knowing kind of what I'm working with and how to navigate that. But the challenge comes in when you haven't done that a lot and you're forced to transition, and maybe you're transitioning because you don't want to. Maybe you're forced to transition. That's happened to me as well. And that makes it particularly challenging, because it's like, you didn't want to be there in the first place. And so you gotta kind of check your attitude and your emotions at the door and lead through it. And I think that's not easy for everyone. It's not easy for me. I'm not saying it is, but I've done it a few times, so I'm at least a little comfortable with it at this point.
Mm-hmm. I love to check your attitude at the door. I think that's super important. As a leader, we always have to continuously learn. And so I feel like transition is kind of something that you would, when you're walking into a situation, I feel like there's a lot of questions I think need to be asked in order to get the full read of the situation in the room. Instead of, in order for you to analyze it, you need to find out, as an HR guy, I know that, there's always, there's never, I've been told that I'm very philosophical, and there's not, when you're picking, I don't usually pick sides. I usually listen to both sides and then kind of try to figure out what direction that I would want to go in. Mm-hmm. And because, if you're picking sides, then, it's not, you're not really getting the true feeling. So I imagine that in your situation, you've probably found yourself having to ask a lot of questions and and that to try to get a really good, I think that's the only way to get a really good feel of what's going on.
Yeah, I think especially if you're coming into, like you mentioned before, like a little bit of a hostile environment where things need to get fixed in terms of culture or dynamic or whatever it may be. Mm-hmm. Sometimes there's three sides to those stories, right? Like you get the side that the person who's maybe creating the hostility has, you get the person on the other side of that hostility, and then you get the group read. And all three of those things are so critical in terms of fixing it and approaching it and being graceful with how you dance that dance. It's usually such a delicate thing to walk into, especially as a new person coming in to fix a dynamic that is old. Been there, done that, bought the t-shirt.
Yeah. So you being someone who has done it many times, transitioned many times, what can leaders do to empower their teams through these transition periods?
I think that empowerment comes from responsibility. So trusting people to don responsibility on them and giving them the grace and the space to go and do something with that responsibility, and kind of trust until proven that they can't be trusted, right? I think that goes a long way in leadership and just being human in general. When we can't give responsibility to other people, we become dictators and we become looked at as like the boss. And I've never really liked that term. I don't want to boss people around. I want to give people the tools to go do, go serve, go be better for themselves and to grow themselves versus just being told, this is what you do, this is what you do. To me, that's it's only hurting them, right? It's creating a crutch that they shouldn't have to lean on. I like to empower people and get them stronger and grow them.
When you just said empowerment comes from responsibility, that just put a smile on my face, Kaitlyn, and I'll tell you why. Because I feel like, we're going off topic a little bit here. I feel like there's, and you probably see it too. There's a lot of people who go into a management or a leadership position. They're moved up from the company and they're saying, okay, well, you're good at your job. We're going to move you to this. And we're going to make you a manager of that department. And they take the management or leadership position, but they don't take the responsibility and they don't see it as a leadership thing. They just think, oh, it's a bump in pay. And you talked about checking your ego at the door. I love when you said that, because when you become a leader, I feel you have to check your ego at the door, because now you have a responsibility, like you said, of empowering your team and helping them to be better employees and being there for them for whatever that they need. So like I said, I smiled when you said that, because it is so that, that's so powerful to me.
Thanks. And I think something that you just said, it kind of got me thinking about the other side of the coin is those situations where we are given more responsibility without that bump in pay, without that recognition, without that support from a leader above us, and kind of what that does to the human psyche and leaders and employees of that leader, and just that whole dynamic. There's so much there to unpack too. So lots of different rabbit holes we can go down here.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, for me, leaders they come in many ways, shapes, or forms. I feel like teachers are leaders. I feel coaches as sports teams are leaders. I feel parents are leaders. I feel the person, you can be a leader sitting beside a coworker at work. You can be a leader for them. So it comes in many different ways, shapes, or forms. I don't think you really have to have that title of leader. But when you do get it, yes, there is that responsibility of, it's kind of like you bring a child in the world. Like you have that responsibility to mold them into the individuals that you want. It's the same thing for me in the workforce. You have that team and you have these people under you, and you have to act in accordance. You have to learn how to deal with the chaos. You have to learn to deal with transition. There's many ways of transitioning. There's people coming and going. Your team could be big, and then 2 days later you could lose three people on your team. You have to learn how to transition through that chaos and help, that team develop and find new people who are going to fit the mold of that team and develop them into the employees and develop the team of the way that you want them to be.
Absolutely. It's something you said there. I don't know exactly what triggered this, but I was thinking about my daughter, and she was recently called a leader by one of her teachers.
Amazing.
And it made her feel so incredible.
Yep.
And just given that, not even a title necessarily. It's not like she's working. She's 6, right? But she was called a leader by someone she looked up to and respected. And I think that's huge. And it made me think about kind of where I'm at in my career right now. This is the first role in, almost 10 years where I haven't led a team of my own.
Great.
And that shift in dynamic and like trying to find my place in an organization where I am a leader, right? I'm a VP of clinical business development, for crying out loud. Like that is a leadership role. It's part of the executive team, but not having my own team to lead has created this whole shift in my brain. And like, how do I be a leader when I don't have my own team to lead? And it's created just such a unique opportunity to grow and, just learn how to navigate that. And it's really beefed up my need and my ability and my, just drive to collaborate with everybody and lead everybody. And that's kind of a weird dynamic, but it's also leadership,
Yeah, for sure. Your responsibility has grown. You don't have a team, but you don't have a particular team, but you have maybe several teams that you have to oversee so it's just, you don't have your own, as you call, baby to look after, but you have all these other little increments and teams that you have to look after and make sure that everybody is going well and that the people under you are able to lead their team. So it's a big responsibility, and when those responsibilities are bestowed on you or given to you and you get those opportunities, it's it's kind of an opportunity to sit back and go, okay, this is great. And then I'm like, you're like, am I ready for this? Can I do it? Yeah, I can do it. I can do this. And then, what do I need to do in order to make things great for everybody?
Right. Well, it's kind of full circle. It comes back to that whole responsibility piece. I think being new to an organization, you aren't exactly trusted with responsibility right off the bat at every role. Especially if it's a brand new space, a new organization, new people. And so that lack of having clear responsibility at first, I know I struggled with that. Like it was almost like identity crisis kind of. It's like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
not being trusted with responsibility. Like I can't fulfill my purpose if I'm not trusted with responsibility to then lead through. Right.
Yeah.
And so I feel like this week, ironically, it was just kind of a turning point, and I was given responsibility for a pretty big project and a big initiative for our organization. And it was just like everything was ignited all over again. And I had this newfound drive and this newfound ability to push through and like get excited again. And it's just incredible how just a dose of responsibility can really turn that on in somebody. So if you're seeing a team member who's kind of hanging out, not really feeling it, whatever, give them a little responsibility and see what happens. I think it's pretty powerful how that can really shift somebody.
Yeah, it sure can. Tell me about the 3 most influential people in your life and how they've impacted you.
Oh, man. Such a loaded question. I mean, I think that the first one, I'm going to try not to cry, so bear with me, Andrew.
It's okay. We're vulnerable here, so if it happens, it happens.
First one's my grandfather. It's actually his heavenly birthday today, so happy birthday, Papa. He's just a miracle of a man. I'll leave it at that again so I can prevent the waterworks, but he's just a good, humble person. He's the reason that I lean into humility every day.
Right.
Next, I would say is probably my mom. She's a fighter. She's a fantastic human. She's a pistol of a woman. She shows me every day that, you know, you got to give this world your all and you got to love with your whole heart. And, and it's okay to stick up for yourself when things don't go right. And I don't know. I think of all the leaders in my life. Like I can't even pick one. I've had so many just excellent humans that have entered my world that it's hard to nail down one more. But
you can name them if you'd like.
Yeah, I mean, my most favorite boss of all, Natalie Pegoria. She's just phenomenal. She's a physician. She's an excellent leader. Just an outstanding human. I think of some of my colleagues that I've worked with, Liz Hernandez-Nava, Laura Pilon-Obey. I think of Gay Hess. Just so many good people have touched my world. And I'm thankful for that. Sorry, I'm getting emotional.
And that's okay. Don't be sorry. That's okay.
But my third person, I would say, like in my immediate life and who's just really shaped like who I try to live up to and who I try to be like is my aunt. She is like a saint of a woman. Like she cares for people long before she ever thinks about caring for herself. Right. And she's just awesome. I'm so sorry.
No, don't be sorry at all, Kaitlyn. This is awesome, and this is why I asked this question, because I feel like it's a super important question, and I feel like, you know, we get to where we are, and there's people that probably help us along the way, and and mold us to who we are as an individual, and who help us to get to our career. So I love the fact that you have those 3 people in your life, and I'm not saying that I loved that you cried, but I love that you got emotional about it, because for me, I'm huge on passion, and I love that, I could just tell that you had a passion for speaking about these people, and that's wonderful. So I do appreciate that. I will share with you and the audience, I've spoken about this on several episodes. Both my parents, who are no longer with us, were huge influences on my life in many aspects. And one of the things that they both taught me is humility, to be humble and kind to people. And I love when you said to about your aunt, that she gives more. I have an aunt who's no longer with us as well, and that was exactly how she was. She would give the shirt off her back, and she would do anything that she could before herself. So, when you see those people doing those things and being like that, you have no choice but to emulate those people and try to be like them. So obviously we can never be exactly like them, but we try to instill some of those things that they bring upon. So thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate that, and thank you for showing your passion in that. It's greatly appreciated, and I'm sure the audience will, and the listeners will appreciate that as well. Any final thoughts today?
I mean, I think that, just speaking on leadership, transition, and who we are as people, I think it's so important as a leader who is transitioning that you have got to figure out who you are. You've got to know your core values, and you've got to take those with you through every single transition you face in life. That could be in life or in the workplace, because when you are rooted in your core values, nothing shakes that, right? Like you can always fall back on that. You can always look at that as kind of your guide when you're facing difficult transitions and difficult scenarios. So I think, if you're a leader out there that's dealing with transition, or you're about to deal with transition, look to yourself first and get really solid in who you are, so that when you step into a leadership role in a new place, people have someone solid to look up to, because really you can't help other people until you've helped yourself and you know who you are and you're ready to take on something big.
I love that. Kaitlyn, I want to take time to thank you for coming on today. So the reason why I wanted to have you on and talk about this topic is because, when we talk about transitioning and creating that mold for transitioning, especially specifically in our careers, for me, you've created the mold for that. And, looking at all the stuff that you put out there in the universe and having a chance to have conversations with you, you are the epitome of that. So, I really appreciate you and taking the time out of I know you have especially now with your new job change, you have a hectic, busy schedule, and I appreciate you for taking the time to spend some time with me and our listeners today.
Absolutely. Loved every minute of it, and I appreciate the time as well.
You're one. I appreciate that as well. So, on behalf of myself and my wonderful guest, Kaitlyn, I would like to thank you all for listening today. Until next time, be safe, and remember, everyone, that if we all work together, we can accomplish anything.
You have been listening to Let's Be Diverse with Andrew Stoute. To stay up to date with future content, hit subscribe.